Hi, welcome to When the Artist Speaks. I'm here today with Jonathan, and I'm super excited because he has this amazing dance film called Atlantis Rebirth. Everyone should watch it. It's absolutely incredible. Jonathan, can you talk a little bit about where people can find your dance film to watch?
Sure. So I'm incredibly excited about Atlantis Rebirth because it's about to make its international premiere. It can be found on Vimeo on demand. So if you go to vimeo.com/on-demand/Atlantis Rebirth, it will be available, but it is not available yet. So it comes out on December 10th and it will be available until December 19th. So it's only going to be available for those 9 days. In December. So I'm very excited for that. But if you go to vimeo.com/on-demand/Atlantis Rebirth, then you can find it. Or there will also be a link. If you go to at AYMAGOH on Instagram, that is my personal Instagram, then you'll be able to find it in the link in my bio. So just click on the link tree and there will be a link that says watch Atlantis Rebirth, and then you can watch it that way as well.
Yeah, you guys should totally check out this film. It's absolutely amazing. The locations are amazing, the costumes, the dancing, the story, it's amazing. So, Jonathan, can you tell me about the title and the concept behind your dance film, Atlantis Rebirth?
Sure. So Atlantis Rebirth, the first thing to know about it is that it is a sequel. So a friend of mine and I, his name is Peace Matamutsa, and he's from Zimbabwe. We got together in Minneapolis and we created this concept called Atlantis. Now, of course, you've heard of Atlantis, the lost city, right? Atlantis, the lost city. It's underwater. So we didn't create the concept of Atlantis. We're not claiming to, but we kind of repurposed it, you could say. So the way that this came about, I was listening to a song called The Deep. It's by a rap group called Clipping with David Diggs. David Diggs is the guy who looks like me from Hamilton, as many people say. Um, so he created a song, and in this song, there's this really interesting narrative where he talks about pregnant women being thrown overboard and then their babies being born into the water and creating a world for themselves underneath the surface. And they exist like this for hundreds of years until years later, they're disturbed by people who are drilling the ocean for oil. And so it's this crazy narrative that puts the idea of the Middle Passage on its head. I feel like the Middle Passage or just colonial history in general is very whitewashed, and there's a lot of things that don't make sense, and there's a lot of gaps, and there's a lot of untold stories, and a lot of things that have been erased. And so with Atlantis, we wanted to look at this period as well, and we wanted to take that and relate it to the present. I have a friend whose name is Lisandro Suriel, and he talks about how the best form of decolonization is through the imagination of colonized people. I think that what he means by that, or what I took from that, is basically, there's so many things that colonization has taken from us as people. I mean, language, history, culture, so many things have been stripped away, but there's certain things that cannot be taken away. And one of those things is the imagination. And so when you look at imagination as decolonial work, it adds so much to life. And I mean, if you just think of Black people, like you can never find Black people without rich creation. Like there's always creation, like this imagination. It doesn't matter where in the world you find Black people, like the imagination and the creative energy is always so strong. It's crazy to see it, and so I think that with Atlantis Rebirth, or just the concept of Atlantis, what we wanted to do was we wanted to take a real moment in history, the Middle Passage, and we wanted to imagine on it. You know, we wanted to put it on its head. And so we took that concept from clipping, but we expanded it a little bit. And so what we said was basically, you know, any person who can make their way to a body of water can end up in Atlantis. You know, it's like if you ever feel called by the ocean or called by the lake or called by some body of water, it's like that is Atlantis calling to you. And so in Atlantis 13, which was the first work that we did, it was really this concept of being called to an underwater Black utopia. You know, we took Atlantis and we repurposed it as an underwater Black utopia. And so in that space, we really asked the questions, what would our perfect world look like? You know, like what are the issues that we see wrong with the world today, and how would we fix those things? How do we want to live? How do we want to exist? And we created a whole choreography based on that. And so that original work, Atlantis 13, it's also available for viewing on Vimeo. It came out in 2019. And so Atlantis Rebirth is the sequel to that work. And so it's a rebirth because it is a rethinking of the Atlantic and Atlantis. So rebirth comes because we're taking the same concept that we used in Atlantis 13, the Black utopia, and now we're saying, all right, we saw it from this one perspective, but what about if we were to take it from a completely Caribbean perspective? So my name is Jonathan Van Arneman, and I am from St. Martin. And so, you know, when I was engaging in Atlantis 13, part of the richness of it is that you had so many people coming at Blackness from different angles. You know, I was from the Caribbean, pieces from Zimbabwe. You have people from Nigeria, people from Minneapolis, people from Indiana, from Chicago, from, you know, it's like all of these different experiences of Blackness coming together and finding commonality, as all of us were Black artists living in Minneapolis at the time, you know? And so, and that was beautiful. I thought that that was beautiful for us to find that symmetry and that commonality. You know, it's like kind of that creative energy amongst Black people that I was speaking about earlier. But I was also curious to know, like, what would this work look like if it came from different Black people from the same place? You know, and so I came to St. Martin and I really wanted to investigate, you know, okay, what would a St. Martin Atlantis look like? Because I mean, the issues here are completely different. Yes, we're people of color. Yes, we have very similar histories in terms of colonialism and the Middle Passage and all of that, but it's still very drastically different. And so Atlantis Rebirth is looking at the Atlantic as the mode of transmission, the way that we got here. It is the medium through which we got here. And so it's a rethinking of that, because the Atlantic is both the thing that connects us as people, because it connects us to the motherland, but it also separates us from the motherland. So it's a connector and a divider at the same time. So how do we take that thing that is so complex and controversial and really, you know, create a world underneath it? You know, we're creating a world underneath the Atlantic. So there's that aspect of it, but then there's also the rebirth aspect of it, as in it's a rethinking of Atlantis 13 from a Caribbean perspective. Wow, that was a very long answer for a very simple question.
No,
Oh my
that's
God.
so beautiful. I mean, honestly, that is just super amazing, Jonathan. I'm just so excited about just the depth of the concept behind this choreography. And it's just so exciting to me. Young people of color and artists of color dreaming what they want to see in the world. That's so powerful. And so I love your answer. It's amazing. Can you talk about the theme of remembrance in your work? And I think one thing that's really interesting is this idea of, like, I feel like your work is kind of recovering information that was lost in the Atlantic and bringing it back to the people. And how does your work really look at, like, the invisibilization of Black history on your island and also in the world?
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge part of the work. Remembering memory, it's so difficult in this space, you know. I feel like worldwide there's been a real push to recognize certain lost histories. And on St. Martin, it's definitely no different, but we have we have a lot. So I feel like I need to give some background about St. Martin. St. Martin is a 37 square mile island in the Caribbean. All right. And during the colonial period, the Caribbean was the playground of Europe, right? I mean, for example, St. Martin, we are colonized by both the Dutch and the French. You know, it's like the island is split 37 square miles, and we have two European powers that are present on the island, right? Um, then our neighboring island, Anguilla, is British. We have neighboring islands that are Dutch. We have neighboring islands that are French. We have neighboring islands that are independent. St. Bart's used to be Swedish, and now it's French. We have St. Croix and St. Thomas not too far from us. They used to be Danish and now they're American, you know? And so it's like literally all of these huge powers used to just, you know, rip the islands apart. You know, there were wars fought here. There was just tons of stuff. People just claiming land. We had whole indigenous groups wiped out completely, you know? And it's like now the reclamation of indigenous identity, of African identity, it's a process because so much was lost. You know, it's like, think of the US, you know, it's like how many indigenous people in the US were just, you know, killed? A lot, so many. But the US is so big that we still have populations that survived, you know? But when you take that amount in the Caribbean, they're extinct. You know, we have whole groups that were extinct out of colonization. And what does that do to a people? It's crazy. And so on St. Martin, the conversation is it's difficult. I will say it's very difficult. We do not currently have an accepted curriculum for teaching St. Martin history. There is no structural program in place. And so a lot of people, you could grow up your whole life on St. Martin and never really learn about St. Martin history. What you do find is you find teachers who know St. Martin history, teachers who love St. Martin, and of their own accord, they try to give that history to their students, you know? And so if you so happen to get a teacher like that, then you're going to get that history, but it's not required. And that's the problem, you know? If you get teachers who, you know, maybe they're not from the island, maybe they don't know the history of the island, maybe they're not interested in history or whatever the case, then you're not learning that. You don't learn that in history class. It's not a module in history class, you know? In history, we learn very, very basic things, and even the things we learn are sometimes outdated, you know? For Caribbean history, we learn about the Caribs and the Arawaks, and you know, they're the tribes and one blah blah blah. I'm not going to repeat it because a lot of it is not true. So I'm not going to repeat it right now because I don't want to repeat the misinformation. But a lot of it is misinformed. A lot of it is not even written by people who know, you know. Don't even talk about the history of slavery. Like I wouldn't even be able to tell you like where all of the plantations were on the island, or you know, in terms of like, okay, whose family is from where, or what plantation, or what this or what that. I mean, that, hey, I'm over here. Sorry, my camera decided to go away. Yeah, and so this work, it it really was an educational process for myself. It really was me, you know, talking to elders, you know. A lot of this work came out of conversation. I would be talking to folks, you know, just out of the blue, and they'd say something. I'd be like, "What? Like that happened? Like here?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, you know, and it's documented. There's archives." I was like, "What? Like, why didn't I didn't know about that?" You know, and so I would go do my research, and then sure enough, like there would be documentation for it, and I would be okay, like that definitely needs to go in the piece, you know. Or when you're on YouTube and you go down a rabbit hole and you're just like, oh my God, like this is this and that is that and that, and then I don't know, I really, there was no method to the madness in terms of what stories were included. It's not that I was like, okay, I need a story from this region, from this, from that, from this, from that, because not all the stories are St. Martin stories. A lot of them are Caribbean stories. And I mean, I know why I chose Caribbean stories, because the history of the Caribbean is completely linked. You know, like St. Martin, for example, St. Martin was colonized by the Spanish, the French, the British, and the Dutch. And so just because we're French and Dutch now doesn't mean that we don't have Spanish ancestors in common with Dominican Republic or Cuba. You know, we used to be Spanish too. So I think that all of our histories are so intermingled. At certain points in time, you had mass numbers of St. Martin people moving to Curacao and Aruba to work in oil refineries when St. Martin wasn't doing well economically. And then you had a mass movement of people back to St. Martin afterwards. And of course, they're bringing their loved ones and their kids and their culture. And so St. Martin identity is largely transnational just because of our history. And so to tell the St. Martin story, you can't do that without talking about the rest of the Caribbean. And that's why I chose to include other Caribbean islands and not just St. Martin. But I mean, that being said, yeah, I definitely think that a lot of it was just me educating myself and really saying like, wow, like this is something that I would want other people to know about, because it shocked me. So I'm sure it might shock someone else too. And so yeah, that forgotten history is huge. And you know, after every showing, I made a point of doing a talk back. So we would always have the screen. So the work has been shown before. The work has been shown in St. Martin, and then I traveled to Minneapolis and it was shown there, but it's never been available for streaming, and never to an international audience. It's always been me in the room, and I had a very tight grip on this thing. I did not want to put it out into the world. Part of it was I wanted to get it copyrighted first, but it's just the work is so connected to me, and it's my baby. You know, this is my baby, and so yeah, I had a talk back after every single showing, and it was always a certain like disbelief, you know, of like, why didn't we learn this in school? Or like, why is this something that we've never talked about before? Like, why is this now that I'm seeing this, or now that I'm knowing about this, or now? And I'm just like, I agree with you. I was the same, you know, I was the same. It's not that I grew up knowing this stuff, and I literally learned so much of this just for this project, you know, like in doing this project, I learned so much of it. And yeah, I feel like it can maybe serve as a model for other places. I would love to, you know, do this research in other places that have lost histories and lost cultures, because I feel like, you know, that story is repeated across the colonial diaspora, you know. um and so yeah, I mean, St. Martin is double messed up because we have two colonizers, but I mean, it's not it's not a unique story, and I really hope I answered your question. Okay.
No, again, an amazing answer. Yeah, no, I think it's really also super interesting to hear about how your work is impacting people. And I feel like your work is like healing the internalized trauma of colonialism for Black people around the world. Like it's super amazing and super interesting. Um, yeah, was there anything else you wanted to add about the process, or choosing the costumes or the location, or is there anything else you'd like to add kind of about what went into making and choreographing and filming all of this?
Sure. I will say that it wasn't even meant to be a film. You know, it's not like I set out to make this. This was supposed to be a live production, but then because of COVID, we weren't able to have a live production because that just wasn't possible. And so I was getting scared. I was getting angsty. We'd postponed the show so many times. that I was like, you know what, like this work is never gonna get seen. I'm gonna lose my dancers. They signed up for, you know, a 6-month project. It's going on over a year now. Like this is, you know, and I'm thinking about all of these things. And I'm like, oh my God, what to do, what to do. And so finally I was like, all right, like let's just turn it into a film, you know, then at least whenever we can show the work, we can show the work. And it just took a life of its own, you know, and I think that was God, that was spirit, that was universe, that was, you know, all of the things just working together, because now I look at the work and I'm like, this is exactly what it needed to be, you know. At the time it felt so difficult, so hard, because it's like you work so hard to create this show and then everything, like nothing is working, nothing is working out. You're just like, why, like what's happening? But yeah, it just, that's what it needed to be, and so that's what it was, and I just felt like a vessel the entire time, like you know, that this work was greater than me, and so I'm just happy that I was the one who got to do it. Um, Everything just worked itself out, from the filming to everything, you know. The filming is phenomenal, phenomenal. Maureen Kaye, she did her thing. She is kind of known on the island for filming dance, and so when I found out, I, you know, when I realized I wanted to film the project, she's the first person I went to, because I mean, filming is an art. Filming dance is a special kind of art. You know, I've seen so many bad dance videos, so many. You're cutting off limbs, you're cutting off arms, you're cutting, you know, just like, dude, like what's happening? So Marine is a dancer, and that's part of the reason why she knows filming dance so well. And so I went to her and I was like, you know what, like this is what's up, this is my budget, I know this is not what you're worth, but we don't have a budget, you know, like and I'm someone, I believe in paying artists. I believe in, you know, like pay people what they're worth, like, you know. And I was just like, damn, like I don't have a budget for this. Like, what in the world, you know? Like, Maureen worked with me. She put in so many hours editing and getting everything together, and the film just came out so well, you know. Um, the same with the dancers, you know, like they didn't sign up for this, you know. They thought this was gonna be a, you know, a live show. We do like maybe like 3 performances and then they'd be done with it, you know. But this literally just, it just lived on, you know, it lived on. And what ended up happening was it was like a class for them, you know. Every single piece that went in there, we had supplemental material for it. So I would give them readings, and when they came back, they would do reflections on the readings, and we would do movement reflections. So it's like, okay, like how would you feel if you were in this situation? Like what would you move like? Like what is this? What is that? And so it was an entire process, you know, like the creation of the choreography came from each of us, you know. It's like when I created a piece, I was like, I can see this person doing this thing. I can see this piece that I want to do is similar to this person's story. So I want them to do that, you know? And so it was personal. It was very personal, and that was the work. So they put in a lot of work. They put in a lot of hours. We were on Zoom because at a certain point we were in lockdown, you know, and we were on Zoom and doing rehearsals and going through different like YouTube videos, like, oh, like who are the Garifuna, and oh, like they're from this and they're that and that, and listening to music, and you know, like all of the songs in the show, like we would just play them in the dark with our eyes closed and just like imagine, you know. And it was a beautiful process. In a sense, it was a blessing that we got more than 6 months to work on it, because we got to delve even deeper. um Even though at the time it was horrendous. But yeah, we got to delve even deeper, and it was just great, you know. It was great. The costumes, the way that worked themselves out, you know, like I worked with a local costume designer, Kareem Brooks. He did an amazing job. I barely gave him like any direction. I barely gave him any direction. I sent him a couple pictures, and he just, you know, he worked in the costume for the main character, the that figure. Um, is beautiful, beautiful. And And the way that that character is now incorporated into so much is just, yeah, I don't know. The work lives beyond me. That's all I can say. Watch it. I hope you like it. Tell me what you think about it. You know, like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Congratulations. Yes. Please watch this work. It's amazing. I mean, I think also just seeing the commitment in the dancers' movement and their eyes. I mean, it was just like you could just feel all of the energy of like everyone is super committed to this because it did feel bigger than everyone. It was like for a mission for the world. So it's beautiful. So yeah, thank you so much for taking time to talk about your work, and please check out Jonathan's work. You can get it on demand on Vimeo. And so, please check it out. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being interviewed on When the Artist Speaks.
Thank you, Justice. This is awesome. Yeah, and support justice. Woo!
Thank you, Jonathan.